Hi there, welcome back to open source development with App Inventor. This is part 3 and it's called Read the Source, Luke. And as usual, the main site to find all the documents that I'm going to be showing, it's App Inventor sources, as you can see in there. And what we are going to do here is just an overview of the sources by looking at how components are created. So let's see. In the main App Inventor open source site, you can see here a couple of things that are interesting. So for instance, Eclipse for App Inventor, I'm actually not going to go through this document today, but if you intend to use Eclipse, this document is a step-by-step guide on how to get started with that. I'm using Eclipse in this video, but I'm not going to go through it. So the other two documents we are going to look at is how to add a component and how to add a property to a component. Mostly the first one, how to add a component, which again is a quite long, as you can see in the table of contents, it's quite a long document, but we're going to cut to the chase. And what we are going to see first is this document, this diagram, this figure, which is a high-level class diagram of the main concepts in App Inventor. So as you can see there, we have two interfaces at the top. One is a component and the other one is a component container. As you can see there, most everything in App Inventor is a component. A component container can be something like a form or a canvas. If you think about that, a form is a component that can contain other components, and same for the canvas. A canvas can contain an image sprite or a ball or a sprite. So components are mainly divided into visible components and Android non-visible components, visible components are things like a label or a text, and non-visible components are things like Twitter. We will see later in the source that actually being a visible component and a non-visible component is important when you're writing the components. They are written in a slightly different way. So there is a lot more information in this document about a lot of stuff. Section 2 is especially important. Let me scroll down there. Section 2 is especially important because we are developing for App Inventor, and you all know that we want to keep the interface really easy to use for beginners. That's one of the main mantras of App Inventor, being very low floor. So keep that in mind when you're designing your document. So I'm going to go up to the table of contents, and the thing that we want to look at now is implementation. So implementation is actually divided in this document in 4 or 5 steps, and the first thing that that it says is you're going to have to create an icon, and you have to add that icon in this images.java class, and also in simple component descriptor. So I'm gonna switch to Eclipse, and I'm gonna show you those two. I'm actually going to show you the Twitter component and how that is how that looks in the source. So if you have a look at the images, here we have source annotation for the Twitter PNG image, which is basically the icon that goes with the Twitter component. This is part of step 1, and in simple component we also add that Twitter PNG image to our bundle of images. So that is basically step 4A, which is creating an icon. Step 4B is actually one of the differences that I was telling you about before. if you are creating a visible component, you're going to have to create an extra class that is called a mock of that component, and that class is basically going to be used in the designer. In this case, we are not going to, Twitter is a non-visible component, so we are not going to be talking about mocks. And 4C is declaring the class. So there are a bunch of annotations that you have to put in your code if you want your class to be a component. So let's have a look here. What we have is that our class has to be a simple object. Our class has to have the designer component annotation. You can read all this later. I'm going to show it to you now in the Twitter component. There's another annotation called user permissions, and there is another annotation which is actually not it. Well, it's towards the end of the document, which is libraries used by the component. So we can see it in here. This is the main class for Twitter. It's called twitter.java, and you can see here that it's a simple object. It uses a series of permissions, permissions from the internet. That is what the Twitter component needs. These are the libraries that this component uses. In this case, we use an external library called Twitter4j. So we add the jar of that library in here in the users libraries annotation. We also skipped the designer component annotation. This guy is going to have a version which we will see later on where it's defined, and it also has a category. This is where in the palette you want to use it. For instance, it could be basic, or it could be social. It could be several things in here. Basic, experimental, internal, Lego, media, all that kind of thing. In this case, it's social. We say that it's a non-visible component, and we also specify the icon naming here. So that is what you have to do with the class. These four annotations are for the class. As you can see here, the class is being defined. It's actually being defined extending a non-visible component, and it also implements certain interfaces that we won't go into today, but we will at a later stage. And another important thing in components are properties. So if you want a component to have a property, for instance, paint color, you have to annotate it with a simple property annotation. There is also this designer property. So if you annotate it simply with a simple property, it's going to appear in the blocks editor, but not in the designer. But if you also want it to appear in the designer, you're going to have to use this designer property annotation as well. So as you can see, they are all defined in the document. The designer property, certain things to do. And then if we also have this annotation called simple function for things like get background pixel color or web.get. Those are methods, so they have to be annotated with simple function. We can see it here. Get is a simple function. And the last thing that we want to do is a simple event. So for instance, the timer in the clock component, it's a simple event. These are all the annotations that you need in a component. This part here, managing the activity lifecycle, it's a full screencast in itself, so I will be doing that at a later stage. And the other thing that we want to look at is in how to add a property to a component. The last section here, update version numbers. This section is very important if you are going to write components that you are going to change over time. So the web component is up to version 3, I believe. So to keep track of those version numbers, there are 3 main classes that you will have to look at, and I'm going to show them to you here in Eclipse. So one of them is a YA version, young Android version, and here you can see that the Twitter component is in version 2 right now. For instance, the texting component has been modified 3 times, and the tiny WebDB component has been modified 2 times. And then these other 2 classes, Young Android Form Upgrader and Block Save File, are also very important. I don't have time now to go into them, so I will create another screencast for them. But just have a read at this update version numbers in the how to add a property to a component document. And I believe that is all for now. This has been certainly rushed, so I will go into more detail in another screencast. So bye bye for now. Bye.